Hello and welcome back to the 40% Better podcast where we talk about leadership. And today, Mike has graciously decided to give us some time and answer my questions about leadership, specifically in his life. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Bill.
And
Happy to be
I
here.
like our shirts are the same color. Just
I mean, we got the
randomly.
same hairstyle. We get the
I
same color
know.
going. I
Yeah.
mean,
Um,
odd.
and even the paint on the wall is really similar.
We're twinning here. Full on
Maybe
twinning.
you're a clone, or maybe
Yeah,
I'm
but
the clone.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting world we live in. So, the one scripted question that I ask is, how did you get started doing leadership stuff? And I mean, like, overall, like, were you the kid that got everybody to come out and play baseball, football, soccer, whatever, or you started leading a shift at a restaurant or like whatever it was, or the U.S. military, like, yeah.
Yeah. Bill, I wish I had an awesome answer for you. But I mean, the reality of it is I am the middle of three boys, right? So as the middle child, you often play like intermediary for the entire family. So I often felt like I was the go-between my older brother and my younger brother, and I was really like the glue that kept the family together. That was probably my earliest foray into any kind of like leadership, um, like process. But I jumped into leadership much like how I would think many other people have. And it's the idea that, hey, you're in a big corporation, you're doing an amazing job as an individual contributor. So how about you just jump into leadership too? And it's like, great, sounds awesome. Does that pay more? No, not really. Do you get trained? No, not really, right? So it's kind of like that unfortunate path that probably so many of us have taken over our careers that like you just all of a sudden wake up and find yourself in leadership, or it finds you, I suppose. But I think the one thing that has probably helped guide me for the longest time is I really view myself as a servant leader. And I think a lot of that somewhat played out in a lot of the things that were important to me as an early adult. I did, and I have still continued to this day, being an active big brother through the Big Brother, Big Sister Association. I got my first and only big brother when he was 7 years old. He asked his mom for his seventh birthday, want a big brother. And I was fortunate enough to be linked up to still the same person I am linked up today, a gentleman by the name of Carl. And that was one of the things that really started to set me out on this path of like, hey, you have something to give to others. And for me, early days, it was like I just wanted to be a big brother to somebody. My little brother went off to college. My older brother moved out of the house, and I was kind of stuck in my early 20s, still in college myself, saying like, I have something to give to somebody. So I started Big Brother, and then that immediately parlayed into like I'm doing a lot for one kid. I want to do more for other kids. So turned into an active wish granter through the Make a Wish Foundation, where I ended up granting over 40 different wishes over the period of like 7 or 8 years of like active participation in that program. And it was that like servant leadership, the idea that leadership isn't about power or hierarchy. It's about responsibility to somebody else. It's about care to somebody else. It's about commitment to something else. So that's kind of how I just started on this journey. And I think those are some of the key tenets that still carry me to this day.
I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so you're the first person to talk about Big Brother, Big Sisters as being like a real critical starting point for them. That is very, very cool. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you think about how what Big Brother serves, right? It's the idea that these children have no male parental or like male parental figure in their life. And often the kid that I got paired up with was an inner city kid. So you take an inner city kid with no positive male role model in his life, and as a 23-year-old kid, I'm talking about safe sex to a 10-year-old. I'm dealing with his bike getting stolen from the playground. And all of a sudden, you start to feel like, it's somewhat parental, but also it's somewhat like, how do you go ahead and get above some of these situations? How do you go ahead and try and find the silver lining in some of these situations? How do you train this person to save money or be responsible or look a person in the eye when they're ordering from a menu? And for me, that's all about mentoring. And I think mentoring is somewhat akin to leadership as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And parenting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. And you're learning how to be a surrogate parent when you're still in your 20s in college, which, some people are parents at that point in time, but having that responsibility mentality is one of the critical elements.
I
Where
believe
did
so.
you learn
I,
that?
I truly do. Sorry,
How
what was
did you
that, Bill?
how did you learn that?
I don't know, just through through just a lot of like patience and like trial and error. Honestly, like one of the things that really struck me early days was I had a really solid upbringing. You know, my parents were they got married. My mom was like 17 when she got married. They're still married today, 50 years, 52 years married. Um, and a lot of the things that I saw growing up was my dad had a single job, my mom had the same job, and like you couldn't get any more blue collar, stable, middle America from my upbringing. And I grew
Mhm.
up thinking like, hey, this is just kind of how people grew up. But when I started to look outside and I started to really get involved in like, I went to school in the inner city. So there were a lot of people who didn't look like me, weren't brought up like me, didn't look like me or sound like me. And when I started to kind of compare my situation to theirs, I didn't realize how fortunate I was until I start to see a world outside of my own, right? And
Right.
I think that was the thing that really kind of drove me to wanting to do a little bit more because I was fortunate. And I did have a really strong upbringing. I had two positive role models, and I knew how that kind of shaped me to make better decisions throughout my life. And for me, I was like, that's something I need to give to someone else. That's an
Right.
easy gift, right? Because I very early in my life realized that the two best gifts that you can give in the world is the ability to help and the ability to be helped, right? And that was one of the things that kind of carried me throughout all of the things that I did early in my volunteer career that really parlayed into just being a good servant leader for organizations up to, billion-dollar organizations.
Nice. That's super inspiring. Like that's awesome because anybody, y- I think people are afraid to step into those kinds of positions when they're younger, oftentimes because they're thinking, I don't have anything to offer. But clearly, you saw that you did, and you were like, okay, I'm gonna whatever I can give, I'm gonna go do it. And that's such a great foundation of
Thanks.
yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna have to suggest that to my kids.
I mean, look, there's I one of the ethos that I really use in all of my leadership now is I really use this thing, and I stole it from somebody else, and I can't remember who I stole it from, but I always say you have to take your meds, and meds is an acronym: M for meditation, E for exercise, D for diet, and S for sleep. Right? Take your meds if you want to go ahead and be your best self. Show up in the best way as a parent, as a friend, as a leader. Those
Mhm.
things have to be rock solid, core to who you are, and prioritized every single day.
Right,
Um,
right.
and one of the things that I kind of took away from that is, and I completely forgot where I was going with this, but it is somewhat critical in just making sure that when you think about how you what you have to give and what you're going to put out into the world, some of the things that make you just a good human or wanting to be helped or ability to help is just being able to do some of the most basic things that I would say put us into a right mindset. Allow us to have like mindfulness and appreciation. And that's what the M really stands for in like the meditation. It's not like I need to sit there in a Zen pose, but meditation for me is really about practicing thoughtfulness, practicing mindfulness, practicing some self reflection of like, you know what, I didn't get that sale, but you know what I did do really, really well, and focus on that good, right? So I
Right,
think
right.
one of the key things that I've always come back to in all of my leadership and all of my, I would say, mentoring and coaching is, you take your meds every single day and you really prioritize gratefulness and mindfulness and like self reflection. And man, you'll have a lot to put out into the world that is positive and good that people will be able to take something from.
Yeah, yeah. I like I tend to think a lot and talk a lot about self-awareness, and that's 100% what you're talking about. And also the the airplane safety briefing. You got to take care of yourself. Put on your own oxygen mask before you try and help the person next to you. And
Right.
that's exactly what you're describing there. And it's such a it seems like it's really obvious, but there's so many times I hear people who they they excuse away that self-care, and then they
Oh,
wonder
too
why.
busy. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And they're and it's such a weird to me because I've been doing it for so like I made a decision in college um that I was going to exercise pretty much every day for the rest of my life. Different levels of intensity, but like because I met some people uh they were way older than I thought they were, and it kind of wrecked my whole perspective. And I
Right.
said, like, how come you act like you're so young? What's the deal? And this is a group of guys who had known each other since high school, and they were like, oh, because we exercise together almost every day,
Yeah.
and we. At the time I met them, we were all surfing, but they were like, we surf, we run, we mountain bike, we go diving, we do this stuff together, and we don't see the doctor very often.
Right.
And I was like, ding, ding, ding,
Bingo.
ding. I'm doing that, and so that's kind of been the game. Um, and so many people don't have that kind of an influence, and they don't go after that self care, and then they wonder why there's this like ripple effect of problems that come on because you don't take care of yourself.
Right. Right. I
And
mean, you
yeah,
and I are aging gentlemen, right? And I think we talked about this earlier. Is like the things that are going to kill us after we're in our 70s isn't the fact that we eat bacon every day. We're probably going to fall, right? Or we have poor dental health. And like these are the things that are like sometimes the number one killers of men beyond their 70s. And like you
yeah,
can establish good like practices now, like good dental hygiene, good grip strength, good balance, good core strength. You do those things now, right? And you're setting yourself up for a better life. And but you can't do it when you're 65. Like set those foundational layers today. I mean, you could certainly do it when you're 65, but set those
yeah,
foundational layers today and you will just build that as part of who you are.
right, right.
Like it's
And
just
that,
all good habit building.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's you're taking care of yourself. You're also role modeling for your teams.
Yeah.
It's like my kids. I was talking to my elder son last night, and I had a really good workout last night at the gym, and I mentioned it to him, and he's like, "Oh, haven't been at the gym as much as I should be lately," and I'm like, "Dude, you're in college. You can go to the gym. Your
Right.
school has an amazing exercise
Right.
facility. I would love to go to your school just for the workouts
Right.
alone. Like
Exactly. Exactly. Wait
so
till you have a
no,
mortgage and responsibilities. Like you think you have zero time now?
right,
That's why I
right,
say, like, get into good habits before you get
yeah,
leverage. But the one thing that I will say, though, in all of this, and this is kind of what I love about this dialogue that we're having here, um, you establish those good practices now, and it just influences how well you show up in the four walls of work. Like, I'm a professional sales engineer, which means I'm responsible for going out into software, ERP implementations, pre sale, and try and secure the technical win, right? And the
mhm,
whole idea of that is like I have to stand and deliver in front of an audience that could be anywhere from 2 to 8 hours. And I will tell you, it is noticeable when I do that same event without a workout and with. When I do
yeah,
that same exact event and I had a workout in the morning, I promise you, I am 10 times better than if I did it without a workout. So
yeah,
no matter like how much stress or how much prep you need to do in the morning, the number one thing for me getting ready for demo, workout. Not script the data, not do your research, Mike, workout.
yeah,
Number
yeah,
one thing all the time.
yeah. It's there's so many beneficial impacts of like I had no idea the podcast was going to go this direction, but it's totally fine. Right? When um, that there's so many brain chemistry benefits from exercise, on top of the theoretically obvious health benefits. Like
Right.
you're getting yourself primed when you're doing the workout to go have that activity, and any of the stress the cortisol,
Yeah.
you're going to burn up in the gym, so you've got a great baseline when you walk in. That's a really good idea. I really
Yeah.
like.
But
Yeah.
also, Bill, the thing I always tell people, like, when do you have your best ideas about work? Is it ever in work? It's not. It's when you're walking, it's when you're in the shower, it's when you're in the gym. Like, that's what also, like, that whole exercise element, or the idea of like taking time to practice mindfulness, that's
Mhm.
where your best ideas become like a real thing.
Right,
And
right.
and I'm a person, and I wish I did this better than I do, but I have a notepad next to my bed, because sometimes my best ideas come to me like when I'm in the middle of the night. And I'm like, I don't want to turn on my screen and look at a white screen and like type this note to myself. So I have like a little notepad where I'll scribble some of these things down, because again, like sometimes, you can go take on all the stresses of the world in your 9 to 5, and you're not going to be super creative. But if you make time to be mindful or practice exercise, man, you show
Yeah,
up 10 times better in the four walls of work every single day. And I will die on that hill. I will
yeah,
take that
yeah,
hill every single day.
yeah. It's funny. A lot of people carry notebooks. I do voice notes on my phone all the time, where I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I got to capture this, and I
Yep.
just hit the voice note thing, and I record it, and then when I get back to a computer or something, I'm document it in something that I want to keep longer. But yeah, that totally. Um, I sleep really soundly.
Nice.
I don't wake up in the middle of the night and go, "Oh, wait a minute, I have this idea." Like, it's just that is like I go out and I'm out. Uh,
Nice.
you know, Unless like I'm trying to think the last time I actually woke up in the middle of the night for something. Uh, yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's waking up from sleep, like having light sleep, and that's just not one of my problems. So, which is probably because the exercise. You
You're
know?
blessed. Yes,
Yeah.
you're blessed.
Yeah.
That is a blessing.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've gone down this whole exercise line, so backing up. So when you first started leading, um, in the business context, what kind of
Yep.
teams were you leading? What were you always a sales engineer?
Yeah. Always pre-sales.
Oh,
Yep.
nice.
Hmm.
Um, what made you decide to go down that route? What was the decision process?
Uh, again, like sometimes you choose these things intentionally, sometimes they choose you. I was actually doing, as an individual contributor, I was a consultant implementing ERP solutions. And my business at the time came to me and said, Hey, Mike, we want you to go ahead and move to Portland, Oregon to help us anchor our West Coast consulting operation. Will you be interested in doing that? Sure, absolutely. I was 25 years old, not a care in the world. So I went down this path where I was going to go move myself out to the West Coast and buy a house out there and establish myself out in Portland, Oregon. And while I was out there literally putting an offer on a house, my boss called me and said, Hey, Mike, um, we have this really important engagement out in London, England. Would you move to London instead?
Oh
I'm
no.
like, yeah, I'll do that too. So, so I moved to London. I moved to London, and they said, one quick audible, you're no longer going to be a solution consultant, you're going to be a sales engineer. I'm like, what does a sales engineer do? So, and that's kind of started the whole journey for me.
Oh,
So
that's
moved to London for 2 years. It was the most expensive financial decision I've ever made in my life. Came back after 2 years and jumped right into leadership.
interesting. What happened to the offer that you were making in Portland? Did you just not do it?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was gonna say, wow, that could be like I can see that going like horribly sideways in so many directions.
Yep. Could back out of that, luckily. That was
Yeah,
that was a
okay, that's
blessing.
good.
Yep.
That's good. Yeah. Wow. That's it. That's so interesting. What made London so expensive?
Oh, I mean, It didn't help that I was sent over there on what I guess they were calling a secondment, right? I had a visa, but I was still largely, because I was the first international transfer my company had ever done at the time. They had no idea as to how to like pay me and do the cost of living thing. So I was literally living in London, paying for everything in pounds, but getting paid in US dollars. And it was the worst time in the history of pounds to dollar exchange rate. It was like 2 to 1. So I was just getting murdered every single way on the exchange rate. And it just took so long to actually put me on UK payroll and all these things. And it just turned into this very expensive process where I opened an office with one other gentleman. He lived out literally next to Stonehenge. So
Oh,
Stonehenge into London was like a 90-minute train ride. So it was costing me like $100 a day just to commute in and out of where we decided to make our home base. Because I was tied at the hip with this guy.
hmm.
So where he went, I went, and I didn't have a driver's license in the UK, so I needed to be somewhat close to him. So I created this life for myself out in the English countryside, but getting into London all the time was just super expensive. And just London by design, even with an exchange rate, without the exchange rate problem, it's still just an expensive place to live. Probably
Okay.
one of the top 5 most expensive places to live in the world.
Oh,
And
wow.
I bared the financial burden of that for 2 solid years.
Any regrets?
None. It was the best thing I
Okay.
had ever done for my career, the worst thing that I ever done for myself financially. But the beauty of it was, man, London's just such a great, vibrant, like melting pot of just culture and people that my girlfriend at the time, now wife, like we were like, oh, what do you want to do this weekend? I don't know. Let's go to Mallorca. Let's go to Marrakesh. Let's go to
Oh, wow.
Scotland. So it's a great jumping off spot for, someone who was in his early 30s at the time, just to go see the world. Because I had 3 major airports within an hour drive of me, all of which could get me into all different parts of the world for £69. Let's go to Greece for the weekend. Cool. Let's go do that. So it was
Very
amazing.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome. And it gave you such a great perspective that you could then share to anything else that you did in your professional career easily.
Yes. Yeah. That transferability of experience is good. So that's such a yeah. And
Yeah.
also, being in some place that's such a melting pot, you get a lot of different perspectives and inputs and interact with so many different people that really any place else you go,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this is easy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
would say I learned more in those 2 years about international business than I probably had learned in all 25 years of doing international business combined. And it just really set me up for any other fun and new and exciting, like greenfield or like opportunistic thing that our company needed to do. Like I was the guy. Mike, we have a deal we need to go do in India. Cool, I'll go to India. So it was a great thing for me professionally. I loved it. I have zero regrets about it, both personally and financially.
I like that. Yeah, I've done a bunch of things, that other people have been like, that's way too risky. I could never do that. And I'm like, no, it's like I'm gonna learn some really cool stuff and there's
Yeah.
no real downside.
Yep.
And it's a um there's this multiplicative thing as you're putting these pieces together, right? It's not just 1 plus 1. It's like or 2 plus. It's like 2 times 2 and then 3 times 7, and and then you're like, oh well, this thing's super easy because of all this other stuff that I've done that at the
Yeah.
time, yeah. So that's super cool. So when you moved back to the U.S., and you moved into a leadership role, what was the transition and what were you leading?
Yeah. So I came back in my first foray into leadership was really a 3 to 4 person team, really with some people that I had previously mentored in the business. So there were a couple of people that I had handpicked who were also new to sales engineering. And because I had a couple years under my belt, I groomed and mentored some of these people into the role. And then ultimately, the team was growing and the business was growing to the point where my boss at the time needed to put layers inside of her hierarchy because she just couldn't have 12 direct reports. So I
Right.
went ahead and took on four of them, four people that I knew very, very well, still friends of mine to this day, still in the team to this day. That's 20 years later. Like, so
Wow.
just super, super staying power within that group. And it just grew and grew from there. So from four, it turned into eight. And then we made a couple strategic acquisitions, which then fell into my responsibility for the sector that I managed. That grew to 13, it grew to 17. And then I really came to this point where my boss at the time, probably one of my most favorite bosses of all time, um, she ended up going to get a sweetheart job at another organization. And she then somewhat stepped out of the role. It became available to me to then go ahead and take on a larger leadership role where I would be the vice president over a larger team. And I went from a team of 17, where I had 3 direct reports, into a team of 82, where I had 6 direct reports. And I stayed in that role for about 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. When you went from, okay, so there's like this whole series of questions in the back of my head that are all lining up there. So, mentoring the folks that became your first team, like what were some of the things that you helped them to understand? Like where
Yeah.
did you struggles for them? And without naming names, where did you see struggles and how did you help them get past them?
Yeah. So a lot of them had come from a consulting background. So the product knowledge was there. So luckily, I didn't have to do a lot about product knowledge. What I was really needing to teach them was the soft skills of selling. So the beauty of that was when you see that traditional path of consultant to sales engineer, the number one thing that every single new sales engineer falls into the trap of is you say too much. You talk too much. You give too much optionality. So one of the things I was constantly teaching them on was product bloat and too many options kills deals, right? So I was always being hyper vigilant around you're not here to train anybody, you're here to sell everybody. And it was important that I always made that clear line of demarcation that we're no longer trying to teach, we're trying to sell. So that was one of the things. And then I would, being a Boston guy, many people needed to figure out that radical candor was the way that I got down all the time. I honestly didn't do a lot of fluffing anything. I felt like feedback was a gift, and it was a gift that was best served warm. So as I was mentoring and training and shadowing some of these people, we didn't wait days to go ahead and give them that feedback. We waited minutes, right? So we coached in the moment, we pivoted in the moment, and I was very, I would say, descriptive around the things that needed to be improved and the things that they did really, really well. So it was always, and what I have found over time is I then created some of the things that are non-negotiables with Mike. The idea of using pedestrian language. Nothing's ever neat or cool or really awesome. It's powerful, it's impactful, it's insightful. So I was always like a stickler around using pedestrian language. And I always said, like, the thing that you need to be most conscientious about is when you go into some of these meetings, it's never about you. It's never ever about you. You're there to serve the customer in the long term future of what that customer is. As soon as you make it about you, it's about you. And you're not going to win that sale, right? So I would say I was hyper focused on just ensuring that people were treating our prospects and our customers with the care and the attention that they deserved. It was never about me being the smartest person in the room. And it was always, how are you showing up with the best intention to help? And that was the one thing. I had hired hundreds and hundreds of SEs over my career. Well, dozens and dozens, let's say. And my number one question in every single interview was, show me how or prove to me that you like to help people. And I said, I don't care if you do it in your church or you're a scoutmaster or you coach basketball, but prove to me that you like to help people. Because if you like to help people, you're going to be amazing in this role. And if you can't prove that to me, it probably is not a great fit for you.
Yeah, that's very cool. I really like So a few things. Number one, I'm a huge fan of just-in-time coaching. Um, like as soon as possible to the event, right?
Correct.
Because if you what I've seen is that the farther away the gap is, the less detail is in everybody's head.
Correct.
And so I might remember it in a way that they don't remember it,
Right.
and then there's this huge communication disconnect. Um, and whereas if it's like 5 minutes later, you can be like, you just said blah blah blah. You could have phrased it pedestrian.
Yeah.
I've never heard that term used, by the way, pedestrian communication.
Yeah. I branded it.
You
I don't know.
branded it.
My
Okay.
guess. Yeah.
You're gonna write a book, Mike's Guide to Pedestrian Communication.
Right. Or
It's
Mike's guide to not use pedestrian communication. Because
not
that was
using.
right. Because that was the thing is, you know, I never wanted anyone to speak about what we were doing in a way that made it sound less impactful. So I was
Right,
always hyper conscientious about like the verbs and the adjectives you use. It needs to be like action oriented. It needs to be like movement oriented. It can't be cool or super awesome or fun or interesting. Like these things need to have business impact because you're selling
right,
business systems.
right,
Um, and I agree. Like when it comes to feedback, specificity matters because when you're not specific, it doesn't carry the weight.
right, right.
You
Yeah.
know, like you did a really good job with that, Bill. What did I do a really good job with?
Yes,
Bill,
yes.
you did a really good job dressing right for this meeting and shaving your head, and you have your microphone in the right place, and you're making great eye contact. Like, same thing, but when
Right,
said with specificity, man, it just carries so much more weight.
right. Yeah, yeah. This is I'm a huge what's the word? Critic of quarterly and annual reviews
Hmm.
because it's way too late. Just
Correct.
exactly for the reason you're talking about. Like every time I've been at a company where they're like, "Oh yeah, we do quarterly and annual or semi-annual and annual reviews." I'm like, "Oh my God, you're missing so much in
Yep.
helping people improve." Um, I want that feedback loop, and I want it as short as we can possibly make it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think to build on that, Bill, like we as flawed humans have so many things that impact us month by month, quarter by quarter. Like I could have a baby in June, but leading up to June, I was probably your best star performance. So like
right.
January through June, I was a stud, but June through December, I was sleep deprived. Guess what you're going to give me my review on? Sleep deprived,
Exactly.
Mike.
Right, right. Yeah,
Fifth representation of my body work.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's so true. And it's such a if you're doing the just-in-time coaching, someone's gonna be like, "Hey, Mike, you kind of off today. Did you miss
Yeah,
your morning workout?" And you're gonna be like, "Yeah, because I only slept 3 hours last night, and I just wasn't gonna make it to the gym this morning. I just couldn't. I couldn't drag
correct.
myself out of bed." You know? Yeah. Um, this is one of those parenting things that you got
Right.
to figure out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nor do you appreciate it unless you've lived it.
Right, right. Yeah, that's yeah. I'm actually kind of glad that before I had kids, I spent some time racing cars, and there was a lot of very late night and then get up in the morning to go to work kind of things. And by the time I had kids, actually, it wasn't that big a deal for me. I was like, oh,
It was
you know,
training. You were in
yeah,
training. Yeah,
I
nice.
won't even, yeah, yeah. And so I was like, I got up in the middle of the night all the time,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and it was easy. I was like, oh, I get to get up and bond with the kids and take care of them, and then I get to go climb back into a warm, comfortable bed and go to sleep, and and that's a win.
That is a win.
Yeah, I saw it as a win, and and way easier than the race car stuff had been. So
Sure.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, okay, great, not a problem at all. That's super cool. Yeah, the coaching thing is awesome. How did you scale that when you went from I've got a team of direct reports too. I've got a layer in between me and the direct reports.
Hmm.
What's the
Um,
scaling method?
well, I think the one thing that I was always, I would say, very willing to do as a leader was surround myself with people who are smarter and brighter than myself. Right. So when it came time to pick leaders and build it from, a team of 4 to 8 to then turned into 17. Once it got to 17, my span of control got too large where I said, all right, I need some team leads under me. And I had a body of people that I could go ahead and select. But the most critical thing was, who are those people that best represent what we are as a culture and being very unapologetic about what that culture is and what that culture means. And then who is then going to be the best enforcer of that? And then I would say who is then going to up level that team the best because they have also more to give in a skill set that I don't provide. So I found a couple people, one of my near and dearest colleagues that has been with me for maybe the past 15 years prior to my departure from that company is a gentleman by the name of Greg. And what I loved about Greg was he was the youngest of 9 kids, right? So you want to talk about someone who's been forgotten or overlooked or just allowed an enormous amount of autonomy in his life to go make smart decisions for himself. Greg was that guy, right? And what Greg was he was incredibly focused and polished, and he was more technically competent than I would have ever been in my life. So he was an easy candidate for me to go lead a technical pre-sales team because, man, he knew how to show up in front of customers and he knew where all the wires were and what buttons to press. So for me, he was a no-brainer to really help me scale and grow that team. From there, I then fully trusted and fully enabled Greg to run his business as his own and then create a team and create a culture of the people that he felt needed to be in the mold of what he was trying to create. There was another woman inside of my team by the name of Sarah. Sarah had come from a completely different background, former consultant. She was then in product development. And again, those were skill sets that I had for consulting, but the whole arm of product development and knowing where all the bodies were buried were something that I did not have a line of sight into. So again, find teammates and people that would scale with you that either complement what you are or bring a skill set that you could never be. And that was the thing that really helped me. And maybe I got lucky, but those two people helped me grow that team exponentially to a point where I was then able to step away from that role of 17 people and then take on the bigger overall leadership of the entire business. Because again, I had people that I trusted, I had people that were better than me, and I had people that really built a team and a culture that they truly believed in. And the thing that was a proof point for me, Bill, in all of this is in my 5 years as a leader and then the vice president of the group, I had like 3% attrition. No one left this team. People stuck around in this team because they were heard, they were understood, they had great camaraderie, they believed in a vision, and all of that was supported by a culture that said, we need to get together, we need to have each other's back, and yes, there's going to be some friendly competition amongst ourselves, but we all believe in a common goal. And that common goal was we help the business move forward however it needs to move forward. We weren't like, we do demos and discoveries. No, we add value to customer care. We help out in consulting engagements. We do trade shows. We do marketing events. However, we needed to add value to the business was our charter. And we knew that because every single person that ever came into that organization under my leadership had to answer the question, show me how you help people and how you love to do it.
I like that. It's it's so interesting because a piece of what I'm hearing here is this that it's not just your box to operate in, it's your responsibility for the whole company's success. And you have to be able to see beyond, oh, I hired you for this role because you can have impact in a whole bunch of other places.
Right.
And you have to be you have to show up for that.
Yeah.
That's really the game. And being a, oh, I only I only do this particular role and I don't see the other stuff.
Yep.
Um,
And Bill, I think the one thing that I did in a very intentional and conscientious basis that really set that culture and that tone was I had this mantra and I had this saying, what are you doing outside of your comp plan for the business? And any single time I had the opportunity to send someone to President's Club or give them some kind of recognition, whether it be digital recognition or recognition in front of the team, or give them a spiff or something like that, I always did it for the people that went above and beyond their comp plan.
right,
And
right,
that became our culture.
right. Well, and you're rewarding the kind of behavior you want,
Correct.
which, like that's the smart thing to do, right?
Yep.
Like it's you reward for the behavior you want, you coach out of the behavior you don't want, and it's a huge win. Why don't more people do that? What's the downside to that?
I mean, why more people don't do it, I don't know. But there's saying that I've heard probably far too many times that irritates me to my core. But there's a saying that says, "You want to understand how the salesperson is going to behave? Show me their comp plan." And unfortunately, that is a hard and fast truth that you see far too often because we've never really prioritized or we've never incentivized, I think, really at a corporate level, just good corporate thinking. Like oftentimes teams are divided the way that they are, business orgs are created, companies are created within a massive organization, and you create this silo culture that everyone always just thinks about how do I operate and perform the best for my silo. And you
Yeah,
never think about like the greater good, like what's the community need? What's the customer need? And I think that's one of the things that I'm finding more and more. Like I've been in private equity businesses my entire career, and what I've found is a trend, and it's truly unfortunate, is because EBITDA is such a focus, when you have such a strong EBITDA focused culture, the thing that is often sacrificed is customer, caring about the customer, because you're
yeah,
hyper focused on like, how do I extract? How do I get more? How do I cross sell? How do I upsell? And like Sir Richard Branson, I read it on LinkedIn many, many years ago and it stuck with me. And he said, like, you go ahead and take care of your customers and your customers take care of you. And I think that's one of the things that ethos doesn't exist all that well
sure,
in a lot of organizations because they're so siloed. They're so focused on like, here's what my comp plan is. Here's what
right,
my silo looks like. Here's how I'm divisionally being operated or managed. And you lose sight of the greater good
yeah,
because
yeah,
you're managing back to a margin. You're managing back to KPIs that doesn't have the greater good at the core of it, doesn't have the customers at the core of it. You're worried about retention and churn and revenue and EBITDA. None of that has like the greater good in the forefront of its need.
that's so interesting. Okay, so that's a really interesting perspective, and maybe maybe it's a big uh, I'm trying to think of the word. My vocabulary just left me.
It's fine.
Um, hate it when that happens. But I was thinking. So there's a company I used to work for that was bootstrapped and privately funded, and it still sits in my head as one of the best companies, if not the best company I've ever worked at. And their comp plan was at first I was like, this is terrifying. They had these horribly low salaries, like basement level salaries, but they paid bonuses every month on revenue received. And it was depending on where you were in the org, you got paid from multiple parts of the business. Like our receptionist was making a killing because she got paid from bonuses from every org in the company because she was like answering the phones. We had but they were the receptionists all answered the phones for the whole business, and so she was directing people everywhere,
Sure.
right? They were directing people everywhere, so they got bonuses from every part of the company, right? Um, which meant they were really invested in this part of the company has, and so and
Yeah.
and and I actually was the same way because the stuff that I was doing on the technology side impacted all but one of the business units. And so when I signed up, they were like, "Oh, here's your comp plan. Your salary is horrible, but you get bonuses from like
Right.
everybody, right?" And I was
Right.
like, and at first I was like, "This is terrifying." But then they were like, "Go talk to anybody that works here. Just go like out on the floor, talk to anybody, and ask them what they think of the comp plan." And I was like, "Really?" And they were like, "Yeah, go for it." And I went out and talked to some people, and every one of them, including the receptionist, who's one of the people that I asked, was like, "Oh my God, yes, the comp plan here is amazing. It's
Wow.
terrifying day one, but you're gonna love it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll go for it." And in retrospect, it was phenomenal. Yeah,
Wow.
it was really good. Um,
Because you're all bought in, right? You're all bought into the same mission.
yeah, yeah, but no private equity. Like this was founder-led organization, um, and they were very focused on employees got to be happy. Either you love working here, or we're going to find you a job somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like they were super crisp on that, um, and uh, that was one of those places where I got to see amazingly good supportive leadership for everything. Like they were just really really good, and also they would do the dirty work too. Like
Nice.
that was the other part of it was there was no high tower stuff.
Right.
Um, there was like one part of the business did trade shows. The CEO put on blue jeans and t-shirt and helped people move everything to their booths. And people that were new to the company didn't know he was the CEO, which was
That's cool.
hilarious.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it was really good. But you're pointing, like the comp plan. I'm thinking, oh yeah, that worked out really. That was really cool. And
Yeah.
um,
Because you're all on board
yeah,
with like the mission.
yeah,
You weren't
yeah,
worried about my slice of the mission.
right, right.
Yeah.
And then, when I was in big corporate companies, seems like the bigger the company gets, the more people get their mental frame is I'm in this little tiny box, and they
Yeah.
don't think about, oh, wait a minute, you know, how can I help the people in the box next to me
Right.
or that box across the hall?
Agreed.
Yeah, yeah. So mad props to you for building culture like that. That's very cool.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great squad. Great squad of
I like
people.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
What kind of hiccups did you have along the way?
Whew. I mean, we only got 13 minutes here. I mean, I mean, you can call them hiccups, you can call them opportunities, but you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
one of the things that we certainly saw play out was, um, like just I mean, there's always an equity problem. Like how people come into the business and and how they come into the business and under who always creates like a salary disparity. So, unfortunately, some of my greatest people that I had ever hired and brought into the organization came from like the SDR BDR function, right? And one of the things that you often saw was as they came up, they got a great salary bump from coming from a BDR into a sales engineer. And then they did the role for like 2 or 3 years, and they're like the number one stud on the team because they're hungry, they're motivated, they're young, they learn quick. They were of that millennial age group that just grasps technology like that, and were super go getters. And then you look at like what they were doing for the business compared to a person who's been in the business for 15 years, and you're like, or someone who was maybe hired on through a different person, and you saw a pay gap of like 80 grand. And you're like, this person's my number one person. I'm going to send this person to President's Club. And when I compare him to the person maybe one title above him, based upon their experience or how they came into the business, there was this massive disparity on like how well people were getting paid based upon performance. It was often based upon like, how did you come into the business? How old were you? How many years were you in the role? And it wasn't about contribution. And that was a
Interesting.
battle that I fought constantly. And the other thing to kind of just layer onto that is if you came into the organization through, say, acquisition, and you were always seen as a low cost, cheaper option that we acquired from a technology footing, we absorbed your low cost, low salary, and it took you a really, really long time to say, do you know what? I'm now demoing all the other things that everyone else is demoing, but because I came in through this acquisition route, I'm not getting paid fairly. So that was a constant struggle. And then you have some of the challenges of like the difference between how people were getting paid and treated based upon what country they lived in. So, based upon the acquisitions we did some acquisitions where we had some lower cost models that were coming into the organization, super capable people, doing the same amount of demos, the same amount of activity, yielding the same types of results. Win rates were the same, days to close were the same, but because of where they lived, fractional amounts of money that they were getting paid less. And it was just me as a leader, that was something really hard for me to kind of grasp was I see the contribution you're making, I see the revenue that you're generating. You should be equally paid or at least paid at the highest tier for what your market demands or what your market allows. And it was often a conversation of like, like we don't have to. They don't know better. Or it was just one of those things that there wasn't always great, I would say, transparent equity in how we got people paid. So pay was always a humongous hurdle. The other thing was um, we really, really struggled from a moral standpoint when we knew, because we were product experts, something that wasn't going to work or something that wasn't, I would say, as powerful as we were. I wouldn't say misleading people, but we were often taking on technology and moving technology that was buggy, that wasn't ready, that
Mm,
um, you know, didn't always work. And like morally, we always struggled. Like, we know this product's going away in 2 months. We're sunsetting in 2 months from now, yet we have a charter to go ahead and still move these kind of units.
oh,
We know
interesting.
it's going to get sunset. We knew that we weren't going to be doing something. We knew this integration wasn't working. We had a lot of integrations that we call gremlins. And it was like, as long as you don't expose it to light, feed it after midnight, it doesn't touch water, it's going to work, right? And we always like struggle from a moral perspective. Should we really be selling these gremlins? I know we have a number, I know we have a charter, I know we have EBITDA targets. So, like, morally, there was always those types of conflicts that when you create a culture around trust and accountability and integrity, then having to do those things to create a number or reach a number was always like this moral dilemma that we always, always struggled with.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think the last thing was, man, you go ahead and acquire organizations with the greatest of intent, with the best story of integration. And then oftentimes the things that we always struggled with was we never did the integration that we wanted. We did always what we call the minimally viable integration.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I termed anything minimally viable is minimally buyable. And it was just one of those things that just created a lot of churn and a lot of angst inside of our organizations that said, great, the idea of what we acquired and how it synergistically like molds into our offering sounds great, but we're not doing it. So it's really hard to get behind like the value proposition of these two things coming together when we know they don't come together as well as they could or should.
Right,
So I think
right,
those were probably the top three struggles: integration, pay transparency, and equitable pay, and then really the final one of like the moral a dilemma of selling things that just weren't great for our customers.
right, right. That's a it's an interesting how many countries are you guys in?
Well, I'm no longer with that organization, but at the time we were serving maybe 80 different countries, 42 of which I would say, or 40 or so, we were serving fairly well. But then, we had 20,000 plus customers around the country, I mean, around the world. So we found ourselves really in any number of places. But for the most part, we were core in North America. Australia, New Zealand was great. South Africa was a great market for us. All of the UK was a good market for us, and then parts of Central Europe were pocketed. But then we would have things just like randomly, like in Trinidad or in
Mm,
other places where people learned about who we are and what we did and wanted to buy it. So again, like 80 countries we were probably supporting products in.
Wow. You got to
Yeah.
have some really good cultural fluency. Yeah.
Yeah. You needed to have it. Yeah. You
Yeah.
definitely needed to have it, or at least wanted to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because stuff that works here isn't going to work over there, and you gotta
Correct.
you gotta know how to go and chameleon.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Huh. Fascinating. I could like. How do you train people to chameleon?
um we honestly we I didn't, because we had someone in country in a lot of our prime geographies.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I had teammates in maybe 13 or 14 different countries. So
Mhm.
like the whole idea and act of chameleoning wasn't really that necessary because we were always local resident experts.
Oh, that does solve the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of what we were doing for our markets of expansion, we often acquired some of those companies, and they came with known footprints, offices, customer bases, all these things. So we never really went into greenfield markets. We were like, you know what? We've never done a deal in Iceland. Well, we wouldn't actually go ahead and do a deal in Iceland because we didn't have any residency or any expertise there. So Iceland would never become a market for us. We
Right.
didn't say, do you know what? Let's go sub-Sahara or start getting into services businesses in Tanzania. Like if we didn't have a person there, we let usually like our partner channel handle that kind of stuff.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Um, a lot of what I'm hearing sounds like, and you've mentioned this, sales. What are some of your favorite? As I'm thinking, okay, if someone's thinking about going down the SE track, what are some of your favorite sales trainings?
Sales trainings.
Yeah.
Oh, I live and die by Great Demo as a demo methodology. I think Peter Cohen, the author of Great Demo, has done a fantastic job really ensuring that the demo and the methodology that one uses in executing a great demo is all about um, understanding how people, I would say, absorb data and information that's relevant to their situation. So, like Peter Cohen talks about the whole idea of great discovery and how great discovery needs to go ahead and set up this whole concept of showing them time, money, or people savings. And if you're not being able to quantify time, money, and people savings back to the end user, don't show it. And he talks about how we need to talk to people and demonstrate things with visuals first, go in 8 to 10 minute loops of micro demos, and then summarize. Right. So for me, demo methodology, Peter Cohen's demo methodology called Great Demo, has always been a core to everything that I've ever done in any single team because it just really aligns to how humans consume information and how they want to buy. So that's a huge one for me. I've done Sandler, I've done Challenger. um there's a lot of other like peripheral trainings that I've done through Covey, Stephen Covey. But for me, like being a career SE, Great Demo is really the capstone for the ways that I will continually to teach my team on how to do these things better.
Thank you. I had not heard of that book before.
Oh, really? He's good.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic presenter. He is the most endearing, quirky kind of man that you'll ever meet. But he really understands like human buying psychology really, really well, and he seeds it into a lot of his teachings. Because
Very
again,
cool.
like it's the whole idea of like just because you have 90 minutes doesn't mean you should use all 90 minutes. The greatest gift you can give someone is 15 minutes back if you've already done the thing you came to do.
Right.
Like it's the whole idea of like you don't have to tell them how the sausage is made. Allow them to earn the right on how to see how the sausage is made. And it's just so great on like how he just breaks it down and really compartmentalizes in chunks how the human brain takes in a demo. It's
I like
awesome.
it.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And I like it because even if you're not in a, uh, even if you're not in a traditionally demo perspective context,
Yep.
the skills from that, I'm 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 just thinking about it like, oh, that totally makes sense. I got to
Yeah.
read that book. Yeah.
It does. It does make sense because he always gets back to your discovery should be like the biggest thing that drives the entire agenda of what you're going to show and talk about. And he
Hmm.
really hones in on when you understand time, money, and people savings that you're going to give them. He talks about the importance of transferring that ownership, how you can frame the entire conversation coming back to those things, really delivering an ROI throughout your entire presentation. So after you've secured technical win, it's never a, hey, let's go ahead and figure out if this thing actually holds water. You've already proved that. Like your entire ethos has always been about this thing holds water. We're
Right.
saving you money. And as you show them that you're saving them money, time, and people, and you're transferring that ownership, the whole like total like return on investment, total cost of ownership conversation is already done.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's a. Okay. Now I'm like, I really have to read that book. I'm. 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 I'm super curious now because the way you're describing it, it's a really good pitch, by the way.
Good.
Uh,
Tell
yeah.
Peter I sent you.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah.
I think he's out your way. I think he's from, I want to say like Sunnyvale, California. Like he's out that way because
Oh,
you're in
that.
California, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in California. Sunnyvale's like 3 towns up.
Yeah, I think he's out that way.
Okay.
Yeah, go have a
If I
coffee with
bump
him.
into him, if I bump into him at Starbucks or something, I'll let him know that you said hi.
I mean, he might be a regenerative farmer. You don't know, Bill. You could
True.
be.
Maybe
You
he's
know,
up
like,
there. I'll see him up there. He'll be the next parcel over.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God, it's too funny. Okay, let's see. It's you mentioned 13 minutes. We now are 14. We're over. Um, this has been an awesome conversation. I mean,
Yeah, I've
because
enjoyed it.
I haven't really had the chance to interview somebody who's been in the kind of roles that you've been in. Um, and really great insights. And I think anybody who's getting into engineering, I tend to think about what's what's the breadth of possibilities. And I think you're doing a great pitch for SE being a super fun role to have and and very, very rewarding. Um, and yeah, like that's the job to go for.
Yeah, I've been doing it for 25 years, Bill. I couldn't imagine doing anything else, but I will say here's the one thing that we typically see. Most SEs stay as an SE. I've seen very few go out and carry a bag, but I have seen SEs parlay, like they don't want the stress of sales anymore, so they go into product development. So it's a great
Interesting.
place to really go from like BDR consultant and hone your sales skills as an SE. And from there, we often see people not reverting back to like a carrying bag rep. They will go into product development or product management.
And I think product management's an awesome gig.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I what you're talking about and having that sales background and that SE background, it makes it super comfortable for product managers to actually spend time talking with clients. And I'm always I'm always emotionally uncomfortable when I hear product managers say that they don't talk to clients, they don't talk to prospects, they don't. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
Yeah.
my response. But I don't. I don't say that. I don't like do that face to face. But in the back of my head, I'm like freaking out
Right.
because you don't understand the market until you actually talk with the people, and you're doing. If you're already doing the discovery as an SE, it makes doing the discovery as a product manager completely makes sense
Yeah. Yeah.
and easy to do. And I've never had an official SE title, but yeah, first two startups that I worked at, first three startups, um, that's part of what I was doing was how do we get this technology to work with you and what is your, what's going on for you and all
Yeah.
that. So yeah, yeah,
Well,
for
Bill,
me
there's
that
still
was,
time
yeah.
for you. I mean,
I
I
know,
have
yeah,
guys
there
on
is.
my team now. I have two guys on my team, 172, 179. Does 3 or 4 demos like a week. They love it. Like they could have retired years ago. These guys
Oh,
are
that's
not doing it for the
awesome.
money. They do it because they love the role. So I'm telling you, sales
Okay,
engineering, solution engineering, whatever you want to call it, it's a fun gig. It really
I
is.
like it. I got into this because it was a fun gig, and okay. Maybe we'll have another conversation. You can tell me more about it and like talk me into it.
You know where to find me, Bill.
I know exactly. This has been awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great. I'm going to kill the recording. Thank you again.
My
This
pleasure.
is super fun. Yeah.